Hello everyone. My name is Sean McDaniel, and welcome to Frame.io Live, the show where creativity meets technology. This is where we talk to all media creators or anyone in the creative industry and share their process and workflows with you in this live environment. Now, we've got a nice set of folks in the room already. We've already got some folks that are saying hi on the right-hand side. Carolina is on this side as well, saying hello to all our viewers. I love to start the show out, though, with where everyone is from. We are broadcasting from beautiful, sunny Los Angeles, California, right in the heart of Hollywood, here at one of our Adobe stages here. So we're doing our live show, but I love to see where everyone else is from. So throw it in the chat. Tell us where you're chiming in from, what city, what state, what country. I always like to see where everyone's coming in from, because it's a nice place to kind of cohesively work in one unified environment. And honestly, too, if the weather's nice where you're at as well, let me know, because I just, you can't not have good weather out there. The weather's just got to be beautiful. And today it's a little cold in LA right now. I think it's getting a little bit chilly. But hopefully it's nice and sunny wherever everyone's coming in from. It's also a great way to locate that Q&A box as well. If you're watching from YouTube, we are multicasting on a couple different pages. We're broadcasting to LinkedIn, Frame.io's LinkedIn, as well as Adobe Live, Frame.io, and also my personal YouTube channel, Sean TCB. So we've got a lot of folks in the room. Let me check actually Behance, because I think we're on there as well. And I want to check for any comments there. But let us know if anybody's dropping in any info. There we go. We got Russell. We'll bring up Russell there. Hi, Misty Dark and Wet in Ireland. Oh, actually, a few of us just came back from Ireland, and we really loved it. We went to Dublin, and we went over the Cliffs of Moher. We also checked out some local pubs in the villages. Really, really beautiful country. I think I found my homeland. So I'm going to have to go back to Ireland at some point. Some other folks popped in. Somebody from Nashville, Mike from Nashville. Hello there. Welcome. And then we have Victor. Victor is from JHB, South Africa. Wow. And it's starting to rain. Sorry about that. I hope the rain is minimal and it goes away quickly. But hello and welcome from South Africa. Amazing to have you in here. But anyone else, throw in where you're coming in from. I always like to see, like I said before, where everyone's chiming in from, because it's always lovely to see how we can all work in one cohesive space and work together. Plus, it's a really great way to locate that Q&A box, because one of the benefits of our show here is that you're able to actually ask these questions live to any of our guests that are on the show. So drop in those questions. We're going to have a section at the end, but you know what? If there are some questions that kind of pop up as we're having our discussion, I definitely want to be able to answer those as we go along. We want to make this an interactive experience. And we got a couple other folks that are popping in. We've got from Pakistan. Welcome. Hello, hello. And yeah, we'll keep those messages coming in. Anyway, we've got a very special episode today of Frame.io Live, because we're kind of changing our format and we want to hear feedback from you. This is going to be our first kind of trial run at it. But Frame.io Live is featuring a creator series that will be available every second Tuesday of the month starting in February. But you're getting an exclusive, quick sneak peek at the new format we're trying to do. And we're going to be streaming from, again, Adobe Live, from Frame.io, from my YouTube channel, and a bunch of other channels. And we want to take this time to actually speak with creators of all types. And we want to bring them onto our show and have them share their creative process. So this isn't just about video anymore, folks. I want to talk to, designers for stills, photographers, anyone in the creative industry. And in the past, we've really focused on, our show's really focused on a lot of large companies and entities, but I want to talk to the individual creators. And, to kind of kick things off here, we're going to be talking with content creator Carolina Rizzotto. And I do want to show a quick little look at her latest YouTube video series called DNA Project, where she's actually going to be traveling to Denmark. And what's really cool about this video is that it's really nice to be able to learn how to do travel videos. I think, traveling and trying to capture really engaging content can be really difficult. And Carolina really does a great job at this. So I want to show you a little bit of this before we actually bring her on and give her a quick chit chat. So let's take a look at her DNA project of her in Denmark.
It's starting to sink in for me. I got on the plane and I realized there was nobody sitting next to me or nobody trying to talk to me. I was like, oh man, this is happening. Like, I'm traveling alone. For some reason, I usually get anxious at airports because I just want to get it over with, get to my destination. Today, I kind of feel like in no rush because I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. The only thing that hasn't synced in is that I'm going to a new country today because I haven't been to a new country in a long time, actually. Antonio!
Camera shy. Yeah.
So Antonio, you've been living here since March?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so how would you describe the Danish people?
Super nice people, very welcoming people, very beautiful people. They drink a lot, they know how to have fun. Sometimes you feel like you're in a movie somehow, like living in this utopian world. I guess maybe because of where we come from, right? In Brazil, life is completely different. Everything kind of works and the system contributes to people just having like very, very good lives here.
They even pay you to go to school here.
A little jealous.
Denmark is a bit of a surreal place. Natural beauty, free healthcare, a biker's paradise, and this general sense of equality amongst everybody. They even have this word in Danish, janteloven, which means no one is better than the other.
What's funny is that we stand out because of our dark hair. Everyone is blonde and tall and beautiful. But maybe we're like more interesting because of that. I don't know.
We are exotic.
The oldest flag in the world is from Denmark?
Yeah, it came from the sky. It was a gift from God after a war. That's what I've been told.
It's a beautiful city. Honestly, this area here is really nice. But we were reading and looking it up. This place was also known for prostitution in the 1800s.
And today.
So watch out for some prostitutes. Or engage with them. So here we were riding our bikes, and then we ran into these.
Okay, we'll end it there. But it's really beautiful video. I encourage you all to see the whole thing. Obviously, there's a range of comedy. There's a range of culture and life that's out there, and she really has a beautiful way of expressing this. So let me go ahead and continue here. But Carolina has been making content for a number of years on both her Instagram and her YouTube, and her content ranges from both short form videos where she speaks to Olympians, and then also long form videos where she's on a journey to discover her heritage and the places where her ancestors roam. And we're going to have a conversation with her on how she gets inspired to make her content, but also how she makes it and gets our eyes to see it. So let's go ahead and start our discussion and welcome Carolina. Carolina, welcome. Hello, and welcome to Frame My Live.
Hi guys, how's it going? Thank you so much for that lovely intro.
Yeah, I know. I was watching it. I'm sitting there like I'm getting pulled in again as I watched it yesterday, and I was watching it again now as we're broadcasting it, and I'm like, I'm just going to get hooked and watch this whole thing if I don't stop it. So I had to cut it off at some point. But again, welcome to the show. Yeah, it's so great to have you. So I do want to start though. You're in Paris now, but you lived in New York for a little bit before that. Now, what were you doing in New York?
I've lived a couple different times in New York. My life is sort of a mess in that sense because I grew up in Brazil, but I've been living abroad for 10 years. But when I first moved to New York in 2015, I was trying to work more within journalism and film and TV, really get that, behind the scenes set experience. But then I moved to LA for 4.5 years. And then when I came back to New York in 2022, I was in like content creator mode, really trying to work on social media and try to work with fellow content creators. So not be so much on film and like old school filmmaking kind of style and engage more with like interactive content. Cause that's what I love about social media. It's so interactive. So that's what I was doing in New York.
Love it. So you went out to Paris and, has making content in two different cities like that kind of impacted how you create it and put it together?
Oh, for sure. I think everywhere that I go impacts me. I was asking even a friend yesterday who's a director here, because he was like, oh, I'm hitting like a creative rut. And I was like, what inspires you? And he was like, I don't know. And for me, it's very clear what inspires me. It's different cities, cultures, and people. And so I always like moving around because it allows me to have an even deeper experience with people.
Yeah. So I got to ask, I mean, there's a lot of different elements in the clips that we just saw. How do you kind of plan a shoot like that? Because I've seen a lot of YouTubers do a thing where they're kind of chatting in one spot and they're talking about a topic, but then they move to a different location and they continue from there. Do you have a full thought that you try to hit and then go, all right, I'm going to record the first part here, the second part there? Like, how do you plan out all of your kind of talking to camera moments?
It really depends. Like when I'm doing just like a video in one city and it's simple and like I know the exact topic I want to talk about and I have the title and thumbnail all figured out before I start filming, I usually have a script and like a really good idea of what I'm going to say. And that's what allows you to very creatively, break up the angles and stuff like that while you're recording. So it feels very dynamic. But when you're recording a travel video, especially a project like this called DNA, Discovering New Ancestry, where I'm traveling to all the places I have heritage from to learn more about myself through different cultures. The whole thing about it is I don't know what I'm going to discover. I'm sort of in my personal life hitting this creative and personal block and feeling like I'm repeating toxic patterns and trying to get out of them and I was thinking maybe if I learn more about my ancestors, I'm going to learn more about myself and, be able to fill the dots in that sense. So it's difficult because when you don't know the answer to the question you're looking for, right? When you don't know the title and the thumbnail, you kind of have to build the story completely on intuition. And so that's exactly what I had to do. So I would engage in moments where I thought were interesting, and I would make sure to film moments that I felt like could add to the story. But the good thing, at least about knowing like, okay, so I want to learn more about myself in a different culture, is I'm not filming everything. I'm still filming things that are very specific. And so that kind of helped me. So I wouldn't be vlogging all day, which is incredibly exhausting. And then sometimes I would be able to play around and do a little montage like I did there at the airport.
Now, do you ever get nervous about like leaving your camera around and somebody coming up to swipe it? I always, I try to do a little vlogging here and there, but I'm very conscious about, people in other cities and, coming in to grab it and snag it. Like, do you ever worry about that or getting looked at funny?
It really depends where I am. In New York, never, people don't care. In a place like Paris, I'm still anxious to go outside and record myself. So you kind of just have to power through it. But I always think this way. I'm like, when I'm editing, I'm going to regret to not have gotten this shot. So that motivates me to just pull through it. And then when I press record, I just really focus because the sooner I can get through it, the better.
Yeah. So what would you say most of your content lives now?
Ooh, it's a mix between Instagram and YouTube. I would say my baby and my passion is YouTube. And that's why I dedicated 8 months to recording a project. And now I'm doing the post-production and doing all the editing. But I also play around a lot with Instagram. You really need short form to power your long form. And I think it's the best way for you also to stay more engaged with your audience.
So how do you kind of prioritize, your content? I mean, you've got Instagram and YouTube. How do you choose clips from there? What do you put up that's interesting to drive people to your YouTube page?
Well, I think I always try to edit something that's made for short form, even if I wanted to take people to long form. What I've noticed is that if you just take a part of your long form video that's already edited and then you make it vertical and post it, it's just not going to work because it's not made for that. Like, you need to think with short form, how am I going to engage this person in 3 to 5 seconds or less even? Sometimes it's the first frame, right? Sometimes videos succeed without you saying anything at all. So I always have to re-edit. And so that's why for a project like this, because I have such a big understanding of that, it's like, I'm going to edit several episodes and then I'm going to edit all the short form promotional material. And then I'm going to really announce the project so I can bring people in and be consistent as well.
Yeah. Now, do you rely on like hashtags only or shares? Like, how do you drive people to like engage with your content? Because I've seen so many people like create just videos upon videos, and they get very little, views. They get very little comments. How do you get people to actually engage with your content? I just noticed on a few of your posts, you have a decent amount of people following you and answer, putting in comments and things like that. What's your tricks?
Well, hashtags, number one, they don't work on Instagram. The CEO of Instagram did an extensive interview this year with this great platform, Colin and Samir. They're great guys. I've met them and worked with them in the past on a Mr. Beast documentary, which was super random. But the CEO of Instagram has already stated that hashtags are just not a thing anymore for Instagram. TikTok, for sure, use your hashtags. That's a whole different game. And YouTube Shorts as well, they've said that it works, but I think YouTube is still figuring their stuff out with short form. But I would say, a good title is important. A good description for SEO is important. And using keywords in your video as well. So if you're doing a long form video, sometimes even when I'm writing the script, for example, I might say Denmark more times than necessary, but that's just kind of like helps with the search engine optimization because I've said Denmark so many times. So then all of these like little tricks, right? Now, I'm not like a marketing expert in that sense, but I would say the most important way for you to, bring in an audience is to build an audience and actually care about it and reply to their comments. I've been like steadily growing my following for a little while now. And what I mostly do is I respond to every single person that messages me, even if it's just once a week. And so these people always come back. They're checking in on me and I'm checking in on them too. I ask them how they're doing. I want to know about their lives. Sometimes I ask, what do you think of this video? So I think it's really important for you to build a relationship with your audience, not because, I want the views, but because you actually care about building an audience,
Yeah. How do you handle folks that are, obviously the internet's filled with people that are naysayers or, have negative comments, how do you handle those kind of situations? Just basic curiosity on that one.
Well, it doesn't really affect me much. I don't get that much hate online, fortunately, but I think everything in life is a mirror, right? So when someone is saying something about you, it's probably how they would see themselves in a similar situation. So I usually honestly just feel bad and I wish them well. I don't think people want to be hateful. I think it's more like, they don't know what to do with themselves. So it's just about not taking it personally and just trying to see any like constructive criticism as something that can empower you. And so listen to some feedback, see if it hits you some way, like how it affects you, and then take what's good out of it. There's always, stuff to improve. With every video I make, I'm like, so many things could be better. And so sometimes the audience is right. Sometimes they're just petty. It just depends.
Yeah. So I guess I want to kind of take a step back. How do you approach storytelling in your work? And I know that you use Instagram as kind of a way to drive it to YouTube. Do you specifically create content that is going to go on Instagram to drive that, or do you just kind of grab it from the full length project?
Oh, for sure. I'm going to grab some stuff from the full length project because I think this project is very cinematic. Most content creators are not making videos with like a Sony and shooting in log and doing color grading. So I think that's something that's going to help me stand out. So I definitely want to use that to my advantage. But I already started actually this week recording short form videos that are super simple, just like me talking to the camera, sharing stories or like things that are connected to the videos I'm going to share. And so that feels a little more organic. It feels more made for the platform. And so I'm going to be testing out a few different things. So there's going to be a mix of both.
All right. Well, I want to talk a little bit about some of the other content you make as well, because, obviously long form YouTube videos, I feel actually are getting a little bit more popular than used to. I find myself watching YouTube a lot more than I watch regular television. And I really enjoy, I think I really like people's perspectives on what they do on YouTube. It's kind of like a real show, but also it's like somebody's independent idea and their kind of creativity. But I do want to pivot to some of the other content you make as well, because a lot of the stuff on your Instagram right now is kind of centered around the Olympics and also the Paralympics that were in Brazil. I just would love for you to share a little bit to the audience how you got involved in that. And, as an interviewer myself, you are also an interviewer and did a lot of this for those events. So loved a little bit more information on that.
Yeah, of course. So I'm, a storyteller, filmmaker, creator that's very passionate about interviewing people. This is something that's always come very naturally to me. And when I was working with journalism in New York back in 2015, I just noticed that every conversation that I was having was becoming an interview. And so later on, that kind of became, way later on, it became me starting a podcast called No Ducks Given. And I also developed this fascination for the Olympic and Paralympic Games. I always used to watch it as a kid, but I always imagined, because it's such an amazing energy watching from the TV, I was like, oh my God, meeting these people, it's going to be like freaking incredible. So I really wanted to have the opportunity to be in that environment, maybe just film and photograph them. I didn't know if I was going to get to interview them. I ended up being able to do that. And so that's actually the reason I moved to Paris anyway. I wanted to be a part of the Olympic and Paralympic Games. And so I got to do interviews with them and post them on my Instagram. I collaborated with a few pages in Brazil, and I worked with Brazil's Olympic and Paralympic team. And Brazil's Olympic team has I think it's the Olympic team with the biggest following on Instagram, because Brazilians are just like that. They're very passionate. So I was doing interviews, and it was very on the go, like pressure mode, because there's so many people trying to interview others as well. But it was a really good time. And I got to attend the games, as you can see there. It was really, really fascinating.
All right, well, keep going. I want to show too many of those pictures there. We'll go back to those in a minute.
Yeah, these are all pictures from the project, so that's going to be fun.
Yeah, obviously being a content creator, you got to do all kinds of different stuff. But how much research do you go into when you actually go, do an interview for the athletes? How do you find the information? How much information you do, and how do you kind of prep for an interview with them before you get started?
So if I'm working by myself, I usually just go based on my interests of what would I like to learn from this interview, and what is a different approach that I can take. So I usually do my homework. I study the athletes, especially the most popular ones, the ones that have the biggest chances of winning a medal, because usually the ones that don't win a medal are not interviewed at all. And so I started doing my research and watching several different interviews to see as well, what are these people being asked too often? Because you want it to be a fun experience for the person you're interviewing as well. With my podcast, I usually do a pre-interview that's about an hour long, and we record for an hour and a half or 2 hours. But in that pre-interview, I try to find that interesting subject, and then we dig in deep into that in the podcast. But of course, with this, I didn't have the chance to do that, but I did have all the information that I probably needed online. So I usually just go based on that, like my curiosity. I do that homework. But if I'm working with a client, for example, I knew that Brazil's Olympic team, they really wanted people to be interested in the Olympics all year long and in the sports all year long to keep up with the athletes. So I try to bring in questions of why is it important for people to keep up with sports as well? So that's a way for me to be pleasing the client. Yeah. But I would say a lot of the interviews were improvised. I think good interviews are interviews where you listen to what the other person is saying and you bounce back a question based on that. Those are the most interesting interviews.
Yeah. So a lot of times it seems like you kind of work solo. How do you kind of manage to, verify lighting and sound and video all working harmoniously while you're kind of setting up? And, you probably only have a few moments with these athletes. So, how do you ensure that you're QAing all of those different steps to make sure you've got a proper interview? I know sometimes it's hard working alone. Do you normally work alone? Do you have people kind of helping you when you're doing these interviews?
No, I always work alone. I'm just used to the pressure. Journalism days really prepared me for that, to be honest. Yeah. Because it's about getting the shot. It's not about getting the perfect shot, Mm-hmm. So with something like this, I knew that, some athletes, I only got to ask one question in a press conference. So then there's several other people interviewing at the same time. Or other athletes, I knew maybe I would have 5 or 10 minutes, but there's you're not necessarily going to have the perfect set, with the perfect lighting. So you try to get something that's decent and consistent. So you're okay, here, it's not the prettiest set, but no one's going to kick me out. It's quiet. And I'm going to get to do a rotation of people if I just stay right here. So that's kind of how I went with my interviews for the Paralympic Games, which is when I got to do my longest interviews. And they were very successful at that. But I really experimented with my interviews with them because I got 10 minutes, and that's a lot for journalism. So
Yeah, 10 minutes is actually a pretty decent amount of time. What were you proud of? You were just mentioning there was a couple of moments where you're kind of experimenting. What happened?
Well, I mean, I was really proud of when I felt like people felt safe to open up to me. And that's something that happens on my podcast a lot when people like start crying. It makes me so flattered that they felt comfortable to share something personal with me or whatever else. So the Paralympic Games, those interviews were the most special ones for sure. So I would say that really, yeah.
All right, that's very cool. I'm hopefully not going to make you cry on this one, so we'll.
No, don't worry. But you make me smile a lot, Sean.
I love it. Well, okay, so I want to talk a little bit about gear because I do want to get into kind of your post workflow process. But what gear do you rely on when you're on these kind of trips, and what cameras, what audio equipment?
Here it is, guys. I have a Sony. It's shoots and log 4K. It's great. Doesn't overheat too much. And this is the only tripod I travel with. It's a Gorilla Pod. And yeah, I like ducks, and I hung a duck on my camera. So
hence the name of your podcast as well. So
no ducks even. Yeah, it's just been a thing. It's part of the family. But this is what I use, or I use my iPhone, which to me is always a little depressing. I just don't like the quality of cameras, phone cameras. But that's just me, the perfectionist in me.
Well, I feel like a lot of people rely on that. I mean, it's great if you're in an emergency scenario, but
oh yeah. And it's an aesthetic now too. It's just when you there's been such a switch generationally in the past 10 years where no one would ever film anything with the camera, like with the phone. And now everyone's filming with the phone and it's good enough. But I think I'm just so attached to having a camera. But now I like it. I like just shooting on the go with a phone. It's wonderful.
Have you tried, and we're totally getting off track here, but have you tried the Apple log info where it goes right to a hard drive? I've never really.
I'm going to buy the new iPhone. I was looking into that today. I'm going to buy it because shooting and log with the iPhone and that amount of zoom, that's the only reason I'm buying the new iPhone because of the camera.
Yeah,
this is the 13. That's why I'm complaining. It's a few generations behind, but the 16 looks incredible. I'm really excited.
Well, they got some cool hard drives. I've got magnets on them, like the MagSafe charger, and it just clicks right onto the back. You run your cable into the phone, and they've got so many gears and rigs for it.
Yeah, again, it's amazing what they're doing. There's no one beating them with phone cameras. And it's funny because you're going into a concert, they're like, no cameras. It's like, yeah, I have my iPhone 16. This is just as good as or better than many cameras. So it makes no sense. That's why I'm getting the new iPhone. I'm like, I need that.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you get some benefit out of it. Now, what do you do for audio? Do you have a separate mic that you kind of use either for your camera or for your phone?
I have 3 different mics. I have this one. This is a podcast mic, Shure MV7. I have a Rode Wireless Go 2. They're wireless mics that you just plug into the camera. They're great, and they can let you be at a really far distance. And then I also have just a regular Rode mic that you put on top of the camera. It's like a little shotgun mic, which is super useful if you don't know what's going to happen and stuff like that, more ambient sound. So I have those 3 mics, and I try to always use them all the time.
Yeah. All right, so I want to go back to the DNA series and talk a little bit about kind of your workflow. I know we were talking about a new episode, and before we actually started the stream, you were telling me that you've got almost 9 hours of footage that you're editing right now for your next episode.
Yeah.
How do you manage all that? How do you kind of chop that down into a chewable 10-minute YouTube video?
Oh my! I think I'm an overshooter, but I think it's just but I use most of my footage. For the next episode that I'm editing, it's about Portugal. I just finished one about Latvia, which is one of my main heritages. And yeah, with the Latvia episode, I had 7 or 8 hours of footage, rough footage. I had to go through everything, and that includes B-roll, of course, but also interviews. And so usually what I do is I watch the whole thing. I just delete stuff that doesn't matter, but B-roll, I usually just skip it. And then I use the transcription mode on Premiere Pro a lot. So I don't have to listen to everything. And then sometimes some stuff I shot a year ago, but I'm like, did I talk about this? So I'll search up a keyword, but I really just have to sit down and watch all the footage to know what I'm working with. What is the story that I told when I was recording this, right? Because I didn't know what was going to be the story exactly. I just knew my intention going into it. So yeah, I watch it all back, and then I usually start editing per section. I'm like, okay, I think this is interesting in this part that I recorded, and this one, and this one. And then I try to connect everything together, and then I put everything into a script, and then I write in whatever is missing to connect all those dots. So that's kind of like to summarize the process.
No, that's incredibly cool. So some people were asking, and again, I want to take a moment. If people have questions, throw them in there. We've actually got a couple queued up. But we actually have one from Michael. I see the other ones in there, but I want to kind of see where we can take this. But this one, he asks, are you a full-time creator? Is this just your full-time gig? Talk to us.
Yes, this is my full-time gig. It started this year. I mean, when I started traveling, it kind of became my full-time gig, but I just wasn't making any income from it because I was just like, I'm going to invest in this project and in filming this. But then after I moved to Paris, I started getting gigs as a creator. And since then, since March, that's all I've been doing. And I still am overwhelmed. So I don't know how I ever did it before without being full-time.
Yeah. How do you find your work? Do you just kind of get word of mouth? Do you reach out to people? Do you kind of, I'm sure there's a lot of folks in here that want to figure out, like, how do you get work? Especially right now with the industry is everything's a little wonky right now.
Oh, you have to be proactive. There's nothing I've ever gotten that's just showed up on my inbox. That doesn't exist. Like I spent many years working behind the scenes, and so I built a network through that. But one big thing I did that I started doing end of 2022 is I started introducing myself as a content creator instead of introducing myself as a producer and filmmaker, because people get really attached to labels. And so I was like, if I want to make it full-time as a content creator, I have to eventually introduce myself only as a content creator. Otherwise, people are going to keep looking for me as a producer or as an editor for other projects when I want to, empower my own. So that was a really important switch. Like, pay attention to how you introduce yourself. Make sure that the work you're sending them reflects that. And if you don't have a resume, create one. I mean, that's how I started. I have so many old YouTube videos when I was just like trying to learn how to edit because I'm self-taught and whatever. And so, yeah, I have a bunch of like stuff on my YouTube channel from like 2015 that I wasn't even sure what I was doing, but it did get me some pretty big gigs at the time as well. As a creator, it's just, I was mostly getting gigs for a long time as a producer and videographer. And now it's like creator. So it's a transition. It takes time.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we do have some we have some cameras queued up. We have some questions queued up. I want to answer another one from Michael because I know we kind of wanted to talk a little bit about kind of your post workflow, but that's not the question. Sorry, just kidding. First day. This one, what NLE do you edit with? So let's talk a little bit about your post workflow. How do you keep all this organized? Do you have a ton of hard drives? Do you use kind of a cloud service? How do you kind of manage all this? And, how do you organize it within Premiere, which I'm assuming you use Premiere, but how do you organize it in your NLE to be most effective?
What is NLE? I've never heard that before.
NLE, non-linear editing platform.
Oh, that's funny. We learn new things every day. I mean, so yeah, I edit with Premiere Pro. That's what I've been using for the past 10 years. And I keep everything in multiple hard drives. I actually have stacks. They're all right here behind me of about 10 to 15 hard drives and SSDs. So that's how I do it. In terms of keeping track of my footage, the ideal thing would have been for me to be editing the video while I was traveling. So that's what I would recommend. So then you can really create a linear and like great edit. And this is a tip that Casey Neistat has given as well, which is really, really helpful. But there's no way around it. It's a lot of footage. Usually people have an assistant editor to really go through all this rough cut. And I've worked as an assistant editor in documentaries in the past. But yeah, in this case, it's tricky. I have to do everything because I'm the only one who knows the story. So I can't delegate. That's the trickiest part. If I could, great. But at this point, it's such a personal project that the only thing I could really delegate is like finishing up and like doing, sound effects and music, even the music selection though. That's so important. Like half of the storytelling is the music. So that's why it's like so much work for one person, because it's such a personal project that I have to do everything. I hope it's not forever like that.
I hope not either. How do you source your music? Actually, that was one of the things I noticed in your videos, that you have a nice mix of different music tracks. I mean, obviously music's a big problem because, you know, if you're not licensing it properly, you can't monetize and all that. So how do you go through that process of getting music and making sure you still get money on the back end?
Yeah, so right now I use Artlist.io. I have like a yearly subscription, and I know they're also attached to Premiere Pro, which is awesome. So you can just like search for the music there. So that's the main one I use. And the good thing about it is that you own the copyright forever, even after you end your subscription, while some other companies, not really. Like the minute you cancel, you can't use any of the songs that you had downloaded in future videos. So to me, that was a big bummer. So Artlist has a good range, but I have a lot of musician friends, so I really want to abuse them at some point.
Yeah. Hey, can I get like 10 tracks for this travel video I did? Thanks.
That was great.
So, yeah, do you have anything, as I know we have Premiere up, did you want to show anything as far as your project kind of layout and look? Because there's a couple questions in here about some, you know, kind of your behind the scenes look and a little bit of things like that. So I definitely want to answer those, Decca. I know you've got a few questions in there, but I want to go the screen here.
So I can show here YouTube on Premiere. Let me know if you can see it.
We can.
Okay, so this is the episode about Latvia, which is the next episode I'll be releasing. I'm probably going to start releasing all of them in January because I just want to have a bunch of them ready. But this is where I started, you know. It's 7 hours and 55 minutes of footage. And this is on log. That's why the color looks like this. But you can tell it's like very interesting, intimate moments, just messing around and doing different things. And this is how it ended. Okay, this is the final timeline. We are at 19 minutes. And so I like color coding things because it makes it consistent. And I like making multiple versions of my sequence per day as I go through, even though Premiere does autosave. But this is kind of like where we ended. And this is color graded. You can very easily tell. I'll make this a little bigger for you guys. And so it was like a really exciting project to do. But you can tell here, like, I change how often I change the music. Green is all music. Look how often the music changes. Usually you don't want to keep it more than 30 seconds.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah. And then orange is everything. It's like a talking head. So whenever I'm talking, it's orange, me or someone else. Here is like captions because sometimes they speak in Portuguese. And so I put like translation here. So there's really a bit of everything. This I recorded at home, for example. So these were like the pickup shots, right? Whatever I felt like was missing that I didn't record in Latvia, I recorded this. This was my set here at home. And this jacket has a fun story because it started just like black and white jacket with no patches. And then I started collecting the patches of every place that I visited. So it looks really pretty. I'm really proud of that one. And
yeah, it reminds me of the old like suitcases, like in the cartoons where it's got all the stickers from everything you visited, all the different lands. It kind of reminds me of that, the jacket.
Oh yeah. And I think I have like, let me see, this was an interesting like little trick here that I did because I only recorded myself removing, like taking off these Latvian clothes. And what I did was I took it and I reversed the shot. So it looks like she's putting it on me, but actually she was taking it off. So there's a little editing trick.
Little movie magic there.
Little movie magic. And then I also did this because I thought this was a really cute moment of me wearing the full like typical Latvian outfit next to me of Thermopolis. She's from Princess Diaries. Every good girl knows this movie. It's from Disney. But anyway, this is just for you guys to see a little bit of, you know, where you go and how things like build out. And yeah, it's like movie making magic, like you said, Sean. It's just there's just so much going on. And even so, like a good introduction is so important. And so I love this shot. It's so like, look at that. It's so cinematic. It's so pretty. So yeah. And it's cool because I was completely alone there. So I really went crazy in that playground. But yeah,
you don't have to worry about somebody running up and taking your camera.
Yeah, there was nobody there. Latvia is a really small country, which is why like telling its story was a little challenging. It's like, how do you make people interested in a place that many people have never heard of? But that's kind of it. You know, this is just a little like teaser of the project and kind of like how it went down. So when do you think you're going to post this next episode? Probably January, as soon as like the year comes around. That's what I'm thinking right now. So okay, well let me actually share. I'll share this with the group. The video we actually just started watching earlier. Oh, Denmark. Denmark.
We'll share this with the group if anybody wants to watch it. I highly recommend it. It's very entertaining. But also subscribe to our page as well. There you go. It's popping up in there. Beautiful. All right. So we are almost getting close on time, but we do have a couple questions. But I did have a couple last ones that I wanted to kind of ask you. So what challenges have you faced in your creative journey, and how did you overcome those? We all hit those walls at times, and it's always helpful to know, how you get out of these moments.
So I would say a constant issue I have sometimes is like, is it good enough? I think you're always wondering from the perspective of the viewer if they're going to like it, if they're going to be engaged. And I think that's just what I tried to do for a very long time. And I've experimented so much, especially on Instagram, to try to like meet a specific audience or what they want. And so this project, DNA, it's the first time that I filmed something just for myself. And the goal was to do it for myself. The episode about Denmark, I didn't even know I was going to make an episode out of that. I was shooting really just for fun. And so I think when you're wondering, like, is it enough? Like, am I going in the right direction? Just follow your curiosity and what feels good to you. And what feels good to you might not be what most people want to see necessarily, or what the people around you are telling you what to do. I would say I have a reputation of being like a rule breaker, in the sense that I really just craft my life to what I want it to be. And I think that's what we have to do when it comes to creativity. We have to follow our gut, and that is yours. And you don't own an explanation to anybody about what feels good to you. So yeah, but I think it's an everyday battle. Even today I was like, oh my God, like, what am I doing? I'm editing long form, but I don't have time for short form. Mm-hmm. Am I going to be, good enough for them? Like, what do I do? We have to really just bring it back to ourselves and be like, what do I think is valid? What is important to me? And then you're going to find your audience, because there are people who are going to feel the same way, hopefully. But yeah.
Yeah. And my last question is, what future projects or collaborations are you super excited about? I know you got another episode of Project DNA coming out, but any other collaborations or projects you're stoked?
So I'm excited to finish the DNA project, because I have like 7 episodes I need to edit. We go to Portugal, Spain, Germany, Austria, Brazil. So much fun, because it's my heritage and it's where I grew up. So those episodes are going to be so incredible to do. But I am also like starting to organize a trip to the US next year. And I want to do a few projects in LA as well, which is where I used to live. I think around the music industry, potentially. So there's just a documentary idea that I had such a long time that I think I want to do there, because I know for some reason, I know a lot of Grammy winners who happen to be in my group of friends.
Subtle flex, Carolina.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I want to do like a project about music and stuff. And so we'll see how that goes. But for now, we're going into heritage. And I think I'm really going to stick to long form moving forward. I think it's what I like doing the most. And I think I need to start respecting that, is what I'm starting to notice. So.
Interesting. Well, I love it. I really appreciate the discussion that we had. I do want to open up the floor, though. We have some questions that have popped in, and I think you have a fan in the audience here, but there's a lot of really great questions in here. So let's go ahead and start our Q&A segment. All right. So I think we kind of addressed this one earlier, but I want to bring it up just one more time in case any folks popped on and didn't hear it. But how do you plan your content creation for the Olympics and Paralympics? And looking back now, is there anything you would do differently? It's a great question. Thank you, Decca.
Oh my God, I never thought about that. Good question. How did I plan? I really, you can study as much as you want about an athlete and about their story. What was difficult is when there's so many people that are like on top of them because they just won a medal, you don't know what their energy is going to be like. And they're not always completely emotionally available for the interview you want. So even though I planned, I had my questions, and with some people I was like, oh, I'm going to be more playful. And with others, I was like, oh, I'm going to ask these kinds of questions. I would have to feel the energy in the room and be like, what are they giving me back? And so you guys don't get to see the questions that failed, because that's what a good editor does. And I have to save my reputation. But like, Yeah, you can plan. Like, you have to do your homework, study the story of who you're interviewing, understand where they come from and stuff like that. If you have the chance, to ask them before, like, what's important to them, what's something they would like to talk about. I think it's important to open the room for that. But I just studied the athletes and just went with my intuition. But there's absolutely nothing that I would do differently because I worked my ass off. I was working like 15-hour days for about 2 months. I only had, I think, like a week and a half break between the Olympic and Paralympics. So I think under the circumstances, I rocked it, to be honest. I really just gave everything I had and was able to bring a lot of visibility to many athletes that didn't have it. So that made me really, really happy.
I love it. Thank you for that question. We've got another one from Decca. With so much footage from your travels, are you considering releasing a behind the scenes or an additional content that showcases moments not included in the final documentary?
Maybe I would release a few additional moments that I don't include if they're like quirky and random, such as myself. But in terms of behind the scenes, I have been documenting the post-production process. And so I'm hoping that probably here with Adobe, we'll be sharing more of the behind the scenes of how to edit, how to, to be a storyteller. So this is all very much in the works right now. Like, I really want to share more so people can learn how to edit and also just troubleshoot creative problems, because every shoot you have a different problem. There's always a technical issue. And so with Premiere Pro, I've been able to really save my ass several times.
Any particular story you got there? It sounds like there's one that may have popped up.
Oh my God. There's just been like when your microphone fails for some reason, or like, because the Rode mics, if you press a button accidentally, it turns off your mic. And so having to dub myself or having to use the enhancement speech tool to like bring out the natural sound that it captured.
I love that tool. It works so well. I've really been amazed at what it's able to do.
Yeah, it's a lifesaver. And also I was recording like a video right next to a huge waterfall in Italy, and the waterfall was so loud and you could barely hear what I was saying. Obviously I couldn't track what I was saying because I was so far. I was doing a really cinematic shot. I was really far from the camera. So I only realized days later, and I was like, oh, I can't go back and reshoot. And so I did the same thing, enhancement speech. So yeah, that's just one example. There's so many things to troubleshoot, honestly. There's always something.
Now, you mentioned cinematic a couple times. Is there any particular, either actor or TV host that you kind of like to emulate, or that inspired you to kind of get into this field? Like, what made you want to be on camera talking and doing what you do?
So, I mean, I've had first inspirations when I was a kid, which goes back to Ryan Seacrest on American Idol, which is very silly. But I would say we are all just like a mix of all of the things we listen to. We are what we consume. We are the people who we spend time with. And so every single person in my life has affected the way that I express myself. But I would say I have a couple of like favorite podcasters, like Mel Robbins is awesome. And so the pacing at what she speaks, I would say that has been really helpful. But I don't know. I am always mixing languages. And so I feel like sometimes the pacing of my speech is not always perfect. I'm not sure. So I don't know.
No worries. I just popped in my head. I was like, oh, I want to ask that really quickly.
It's a good question. You got there.
We got another one from Michael here. Of the places you visited, which location would you consider staying for a longer period? It's a great question, Michael.
Ooh, that's easy. Portugal and Italy, for sure. Spain too. Spain's fun, but I'm not a big fan of Spanish food, and I am vegetarian now, so it's a little harder there. But I think Italy has my heart because I was just there for 3 weeks now. It's tough. And I was there in the winter, but Italians are like so similar to Brazilians, and the Portuguese as well in their own way. Like, I had such a good time in Portugal. And the fact that I had 9 hours of footage to go through for the Portugal episodes just shows how much fun I was having and how many incredible things I recorded. So I would say both. Who knows? I'm considering spending like some time in Italy next year.
Bummer. All these beautiful places to go visit. Such a hard knock life. No, I love it. I actually went to Paris last year, and I only was there for the night, and it was just beautiful. So it's really great for you to be able to go visit these countries and do what you do. We have one last question though before we actually call it. And again, it's from our good friend here. Do you use LUTs for grading, or do you just color frame by frame? Could you share a little bit about your color grading process? Because you did mention earlier you do shoot logs. So yeah.
Yes. So with color grading, it's almost like a different profession. I respect it so much that I don't introduce myself as a color grader. It's the only thing that I haven't done for clients. Like I would do it if they ask, but I won't promote it, right? But I do have a good grasp. Like I color grade on Premiere. I'm just so used to it at this point. I have used their LUTs in the past, like the video where I dressed as an inflatable shark. Check that out if you want. I used a LUT and it just fits so perfectly with that environment. But sometimes, I just like accentuating the natural colors. So with this, I did everything manually. What I give you as a tip is when you're recording, make sure the color temperature is the same the whole video. It makes the color grading process so much easier. So, because when you're having to fight and color, like do the white balance every single shot, and it's all in a different place, it gets so messy. So have a stable color temperature on your camera before you start recording for the whole project.
Got it. Great note. Beautiful. Well, thank you for all the questions. And unfortunately, we are at time. I know we could probably talk for another hour about all this different stuff. But thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I love it. Anytime, guys. I love talking about this kind of stuff. I'm a creator, but I'm a nerd at heart.
Well, Nerds Unite, we'd love to have you on at any point in the future. But thank you for joining us. And thank you for everyone for joining us as well. If you want to learn more about Frame.io, go ahead over to frame.io/live. And you could sign up for ongoing sessions. We have version 4 that's available. We've got ongoing sessions to teach you how version 4 works. But let us also know too, reach out to me on my Instagram pages as well. That's Sean TCB. Or at Sean TCB, and let us know if you want to be on the show. I am looking for content creators that are out there and available to chit chat with us here on the show. And if you like the show, let me know. I'm very curious to know if we're following the right kind of format. If you have any feedback for us, we want to hear about it, because again, this is a special episode of Frame.io Live. Now make sure you follow Frame.io on Instagram. It's frame_io, and also our blog at blog.frame.io. There it is, blog.frame.io. And yeah, check us out. And we've got a lot of great information in there. And obviously Adobe Live, thank you for letting us stream on your streaming channel. And everyone that joined us, thank you so much for joining us at Frame.io Live. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.